Random thoughts. When I thought about recording this video, I had the title of Your Mind is a Battleground. But then I thought about it and I realized, no, actually it's not our minds that are battlegrounds or battlefields. It's actually our hearts. And I'm going to explain why I changed that, or I changed the title. This video is about how at every moment somebody's trying to change something about us. And it's not just one person, but many entities are trying to change a lot of things about us. And millions, if not billions of dollars are being spent annually to try to change who you are. And that change starts from the ideas you hold, the beliefs you have, your lifestyle, the things you own, the things you do, your mission in life, your vision in life, your perspective to life, your perspective to politics, your perspective to religious matters, your perspective about specific historical events, your perspective about conflicts that are happening around the world, maybe near you or maybe elsewhere. Your perspective about relationships between people, individual people and communities and ethnic groups, and your position on societal issues, different issues, how people live, how people reproduce, how people build societies, how society is going to develop going into the future. Your view of yourself, your view of others who are like you, your view of others who are not like you. So each and every moment, there is something going on, try to persuade you to change many of these things, and I've not listed everything. I'm just giving you examples. Now, here is why I'm calling it a battlefield, is because these ideas, there are always many actors, and sometimes on many of these ideas, you are being pulled into different directions. And you don't realize that you are, initially, as I said, I was saying your mind or your brain is a battlefield because there are so many entities that are struggling and fighting one another to try to pull you from one end to the other. And the best illustration I can give for that, or the best analogy I can give for that, if you are a Kenyan, you are going to understand this. And maybe if you are an African and you've lived in Africa or a city in Africa, you will probably get this. It's like when you go to bus station. Let me give you example of Machakos Country Bus in Nairobi. When you go there, if you've been to that place, you know what happens the moment you reach there. Then there are all these buses that are waiting to take people to different places, Western Kenya, the coast, wherever. And you're traveling and you go to the bus station. What happens is there are these, we call them makangas. And what happens is you walk in, you'll see like 10 or 15 guys rushing towards you. And if you have a luggage, someone will pick your bag, another one will pick another bag, another one will take something else, and others will even carry you. And then you realize one of your bags is going to another bus, another bag is going to another bus. If you had kids, one of the kids is going to another bus, and the other kid is going to another bus, and you yourself is being taken into another bus. All these people are fighting amongst themselves to see who can take you to their bus, because if you go to their bus, of course, they end up getting a cut of what you're going to pay. Now, you are in the same situation every day. It's just that physical sense of it, you don't see it. But if you are careful enough to look around and to listen, you will see that that's actually what is happening in your life. These people, most of the people who are fighting to change your mind, and I'm going to say why it's a heart and not mind, are people you don't even know. These are people sitting in boardrooms, you say in Westlands, Nairobi, or even New York, or somewhere else on earth. You don't know these people. They are sitting down and they are putting marketing strategies in place. How are we going to market this to these people? How are we going to change the lifestyle of these people so that it fits whatever we are selling? And it's not just about products. It's about politics as well. There are people sitting in boardrooms in major cities discussing how are we going to change how society exists, how are we going to shape society to be something else because of what else we are trying to achieve, a certain vision. And often now when it comes to politics, and not just politics, even in business sense, that's where you have the word PR, public relations, and what is actually is just propaganda. And I I didn't know how much propaganda was happening around us until very much later in my life. I could not imagine how much propaganda happens around us. And this propaganda happens through the TV, through the radio, through the newspapers, through social media today. But they actually happen even without all this, that propaganda has always happened even without the radio and the TV, and it happens even to date. Stories or narrative will start spreading in the villages, and you go to the bar and people start talking about some things about politics, and then you hear that and you pick that and you run with it and you tell it to somebody else, and a narrative spreads like that. But actually that's a narrative that was shaped in an office, and then it was planted into the population, and then it spreads. And so you become a battlefield, because while this group is doing this to push you to a certain direction, there is another group that is doing a counter to that, because they are fighting for your opinion. They are fighting for your perspective. The more people you have who go according to how you want them to go, the more things you are bound to sell, or the more votes you are likely to get. And these wars can become very ugly, and often we don't see that ugliness. I remember I was telling somebody a story recently of, I think it was Ukraine or Georgia. It had a revolution, maybe 2010, 2014, 2015. And there was this story of a guy during the revolution. There are protests and people were protesting to have the president who was ruling then to leave. And that went on for, I think, weeks. And at some point, it was just like at a plateau, like more people were not coming into the streets, and the same people were coming into the streets, and that was not being enough. And then there was this guy who became like a celebrity during this revolution. This guy could compose and recite poems, and these poems were about revolution. And somehow he became sort of a symbol of the revolution. And then one day this guy was found dead. And that's actually what moved the revolution to its conclusion, because even people who did not come out to protest had connected with this guy. So even people who were like, maybe not, when they heard that this guy has been killed, they came out and the government fell. Now, later on, investigations come to disclose that this guy had actually been killed by people who were pushing the revolution, because at some point he had this, I call it an emotional value, that was so high, and they understood if you eliminate this guy, his emotional value is going to be of great use at this point. And that's PR, and that's how ugly it can go. That's how ugly it can go. But many of us walk around without realizing how much is going on fighting for our hearts. And I'm using hearts, not mind, for a reason. Many of us don't realize how much of that is happening. Many of us don't realize every day billions of dollars, or at least millions of dollars, are being spent to just push us into some way of thinking, or into some way of living, or into a certain perspective of political or societal or economic or whatever. Many of us don't realize that. And many of us just think, I'm just a person living an independent life. I can just follow news a little bit, but I don't really follow that. So whatever happens there, it doesn't affect me. But you don't realize that this battle is so efficient that even when you kind of like you're removing yourself, this battle will be brought to you through friends and your relatives, your kids, your parents, and you don't even notice it. That is the most interesting part about it. Now, why did I choose to call it it's a battle of the heart and not the battle of the mind? Here is the reason why. When all these things are happening, it's not efficient to try to persuade people logically, because it's so difficult to persuade people logically, like to give them data and information and reasoning so that you change their mind and you have them live a certain way, or do things a certain way, or vote a certain way. It doesn't work. What works is targeting their heart. And in fact, the most successful campaigns will bypass your logic. They will bypass your logic and go into your heart. And the mission is to win over your heart, your feelings. So that's why propaganda works on your feelings, your emotions. It doesn't. There's a very good PR, we can say expert, would know that it's a waste of time to try to go to your logic, because that would be so hard. So what they do, they will bypass your logic and go into your emotion. And so all this going on, this push and pull, is about your heart. It's not about what you will think. It's about what you will feel, because we feel and then we try to find logic for it. The first thing we do, if we see somebody, we first feel something about them, and then now we start to find reasons why we like them, or we start looking for reasons why we dislike them. So because of that, what we go through, or what we've become, is what our hearts have become, is battlegrounds of different groups of people, different PR agencies, different political organizations, different NGOs, different media houses, different religious groups, this thing is so humongous, it's so big, and knowing about it is good, because you can at least try to, not to be influenced so much. But the most unfortunate thing is that nobody can escape it completely or 100%. You'll always be found. You'll always be caught somewhere, and you'll always be warned somewhere. All of us can be conned at some point. And unfortunately, the attacks are so many that maybe you can reduce the success of these attacks maybe to 30%, but you can't go to 0%. But at least understanding that your heart is a battleground, it's a battlefield, and so many people are fighting over it, and a lot of money is being spent in that war, can help you at least make your life a little bit more interesting for yourself. Those are my random thoughts.